Hi, and welcome to this PMP class. I designed this class specifically in mind for project managers who are interested in sitting for the PMP exam, but more importantly, interested in just focusing their time in studying the information that's needed for the exam. There's countless of pieces of information out there. Why spend hours and hours trying to sift through all that information and guess when you can actually step by step go through every single question that I studied when I passed on my first attempt? And I will show you how to do just that. We're going to make sure that no stone is unturned. So at the end of the day, you will save yourself the headache of trying to guess what's going to be on the exam. So if you're a project manager who's looking to sit for the PMP exam for the first try, or if you're a project manager who needs to retake the exam, learn all the questions that I actually studied when I passed the exam on the first try. And I know that you can actually do it too. Focus on what's actually on the exam versus spending hours on information that's not even on the exam. So I encourage you to consider this class. If you are interested, we can guarantee that at the end of the day, we're going to save you time and we're going to save you the headache by telling you exactly what you need to focus on. And I look forward to seeing you on the inside. Okay, so here we are with question number 31. Question number 31 states that a project manager is working on an international effort that involves a project team located in 4 different continents. Now, the project team is extremely proud of the progress they have made on the recent iteration of the project. However, the senior stakeholders unfamiliar with the project's progress are concerned that the project may be unsuccessful. So the question is, what should the project manager do to help mitigate the stakeholders' concerns? Option A, the PM should create and send out a high-level progress summary to all stakeholders that has been approved by the program manager. Option B, the PM should set up an in-person status meeting so that stakeholders can speak with the team about their concerns. Option C, that the PM should set up a virtual meeting with the stakeholders to discuss concerns and provide regular progress updates every 2 weeks. Or option D, that the PM should ask key developers to identify the most important risks and what the project team is doing to address those risks for the stakeholders. Now we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, welcome back, and hopefully you got the answer correct, and the correct answer is C. That when faced with a situation where you have stakeholders who are not necessarily happy with the progress of the project, the PM's first line of defense is to set up a virtual meeting, because in this case, the stakeholders are in different continents, and have that discussion to understand their concerns, and then most importantly, provide them with progress reports or updates every 2 weeks. Again, the first line of defense that the PMP is going to want to see from your answers is, are you as a PM taking the initiative to understand the root cause of the issue, whether that is discussing the issue with individuals on your team or the sponsor or stakeholders, or maybe you're just researching documents to understand and do that root cause analysis through those documents. So with that being said, hopefully you got the answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 32. Question number 32 states that during an acceptance testing, a project sponsor asked the project manager to add a couple of features. Now, to meet the firm's go live date, the project team will need to work overtime. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, submit an emergency change request and assign tasks to the team. Option B, request approval for overtime and a bonus to deliver on time. Option C, inform the project sponsor that the project team cannot commit to more work. Or option D, consult with the project team and provide options to the sponsor. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct, and the correct answer is D. Now, when faced with the situation that you have a firm go live date, as you can see here in the PMP question, and you find that the project sponsor says, oh, by the way, can you go ahead and do these extra couple features? The PM should go ahead and consult with the project team and provide options to the sponsor. Again, it's really doing the assessment as to what is going to be the impact that this has on your project. Now, you know right away that you have a firm go live date, and more than likely, as it says up here, that you will need overtime to accomplish that. But it's by understanding the situation and the impact that you can then have a further conversation with that project sponsor to then ultimately make a decision on that project. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next section. Okay, so here we are with question number 33. Question number 33 states, in a daily stand-up, the project lead notices that one of the senior developers is reassigning some of the easy backlog items to other team members, arguing that it is more efficient for the senior developers to work on complex items. So the question is, what should the project lead do? Option A, include this practice in the next sprint review and discuss it with all the team members. Option B, ask the senior developer to stop assigning the task because that's the Scrum Master's job. Option C, support the senior developer's actions and their authority over the team members. Option D, include this practice in the next sprint retrospective and discuss it with all the team members. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got this answer correct, and the correct answer is D. That when faced with a situation that you have one of the senior developers on your team assigning tasks to other members who may be more junior developers, in this case, as the project lead, you want to go ahead and include this practice in the next sprint retrospective and discuss it with all the team members. Now, with this type of PMP question, what they're really looking to see is if you understand what is the agile process in all the various phases. If you notice, if you look at the options that PMP gave you up on option A, it says that you would include this practice in the sprint review. And then with option D, you would include this practice in the next sprint retrospective. Because option A and D are somewhat similar, this gives you an indication visually to then pay attention to those options, because that might be the PMP's way to say, let me actually see if you understand the agile methodology process. Now, the sprint retrospective is essentially the process of AKA lessons learned. That's when you've completed all your work, and then you meet as a team to discuss any hiccups you've encountered and any lessons you've learned throughout that development lifecycle, to discuss that amongst yourselves and say, how can we improve upon our processes for the next time we actually do another sprint? And so that is actually what they're looking for right here. As you see here, here's the phase. Hopefully you got that answer correct. And I also want to point this out that if you see here, right here, option B, ask the developer to stop assigning the task because it's the Scrum Master's job. It's not really the Scrum Master's job to go ahead and assign those tickets. You do go through a sprint planning and prioritization phase, but again, that's another thing that I want to point out. It's not only not the Scrum Master's job. Typically, what you're going to find on the PMP exam, you're never going to have the project manager or the project lead mandating or dictating to anyone on the team to do this or do that. So if you see one of those options on the PMP, right away you kind of know that's not going to be the correct answer. Just keep that in mind when you sit for the exam, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, and welcome to question number 34. Question number 34 states, a project team is working remotely on a project with tight deadlines. Now, in the middle of the project, the team member is replaced with an individual who's new to the company. Now, the document repository is available to review, but since the project is quite complex, it could take time to understand the details related to the new team member's responsibilities. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, assign tasks and provide context so that the new team member can contact the appropriate resources for support. Option B, ask the new team member to review the repository and schedule a meeting to provide details and tasks. Option C, organize a social event to introduce a new team member to key stakeholders and the project team. Or option D, introduce the new team member to the project team and provide an explanation of the key themes. Now we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. So when faced with a new team member that you're working on a project, not only is he new to the project, but new to the actual company. The PM's first line of defense is to ask the new team member to review the repository and then schedule a meeting to provide details and tasks. Again, it's really the PMP looking for how would you as a PM handle a situation that you need someone on your team to be either brought up to speed or to be trained on a specific type of application or processes. And in this case, the repository of information is an avenue that you can take to get that individual properly updated with the new existing functionality of the project, as well as get acclimated as to what that overall company entails specific to that project. Now, hopefully you got this answer correct. Again, I just want to point out here, if you look at other options, that you want to go ahead and weed out the ones that look funny to hopefully then get through the process of elimination, come up with the correct answer. Over here on option C, organize a social event to introduce the new team member to the key stakeholders. Now, pay attention to the questions that the PMP is asking you. It's really asking you, how would you get this new team member up to speed? It's not saying how would you handle introducing them into the actual project and the project team. Introducing them is a nice thing, but it's not going to solve the issue at hand, which is getting them up to speed as far as the functionality of this specific project. So keep that in mind if you look at the PMP questions options, go through the process of elimination, and then hopefully come up with just 2 remaining options and then choose between them. Hopefully you got this answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next section. Okay, so here we are with question number 35. Question number 35 states, a project manager is managing a project in a fast-paced environment. Now, the project manager needs to empower the team to collaborate towards an expected outcome and enable a high team performance. The CEO has suggested that the project manager apply a servant leadership style. So the question is, what should the project manager do to demonstrate the capabilities of a servant leader? Option A, create an environment where all the team members compete to achieve the desired results. Option B, encourage all the team members to develop the perfect plan to achieve the desired results. Option C, assess the business case and define the project priorities to motivate all the team members. Or option D, define the project's objectives and create an environment where all the team members can succeed in achieving them. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is D, that when faced with a situation that you want to act as, they say here, a servant leader. The correct answer is that the PM would define the project objectives and create an environment where all team members can succeed in achieving them. It's high probability that this form of question of servant leadership is going to be on the PMP exam. And really, it's just understanding whether or not you understand what exactly that means. Now, the way you go ahead and about answering this question is going through the various options, looking for those key words that may not necessarily define servant leader. And in this case, with option A, create an environment where the members compete with each other, right away, something like that, you know that's not the correct answer. With option B, encourage, there's a good keyword, but if you look over here, it's asking the team to develop the perfect plan to achieve desired results. That's not really something that would necessarily happen through the development life cycle, and the PM is not necessarily going to ask the team members to do anything. Now, the role of a project manager may be to motivate the team, but not necessarily asking them to create plans on how to achieve the results of the work. And with option C, assess the business case and define the project priorities. The business case really has absolutely nothing to do with senior leadership. So through the process of elimination, you come down to option D, which is defining the objectives and most importantly, as you see here, creating an environment that is something that the team members can succeed in achieving those objectives. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 36. Question number 36 states that there is an upcoming merger between a functional organization and an agile organization. Now, the merger has necessitated that the team members from both organizations brainstorm the effect of the merger will have on the compliance standards and the previous regulations for a project. So the question is, what should the project manager do in order to achieve this objective? Option A, hold a joint meeting with both organizations, determine the engagement method, and then brainstorm. Option B, schedule a separate breakaway sessions for each organization to brainstorm and share ideas. Option C, hold separate meetings for each organization, determine the engagement method, and then brainstorm. Or option D, which is to bring a team of experts to brainstorm and agree on the next course of action for the organizations. Now we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the questions, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is A, that when faced with a merger and you have two organizations that need to come together to discuss the impact that that merger is going to have on the project, the PM would hold a joint meeting with both organizations to determine an engagement method and then brainstorm. As I've often said, when it comes to PMP questions, if you notice here, there are somewhat options here that look almost similar: hold a joint meeting and then hold a separate meeting. You want to go ahead and pay close attention to any type of options that look close to each other to then determine whether or not one of the two may actually be the correct answer. And in this case, it's very important to understand that, because if you notice here, hold a joint meeting and hold a separate meeting. Right away, it's always the role of a PM to bring people together, to have those difficult conversations at times, to then understand the situation and then resolve it. So in this case, it goes without saying that a PM would never suggest that two organizations or stakeholders and sponsors have separate meetings. If you notice here with the keywords and the options, schedule a separate breakaway sessions, hold a separate meeting. In this case, it's definitely a giveaway that these are not the correct answers for the questions. If you see any options on the PMP exam where the project manager is a motivator, where they are scheduling for bringing people together to resolve situations, then pay close attention to those options, because it's highly probable that they may be the correct answer. Hopefully you got this answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, so here we are with question number 37. Question number 37 states, a project manager is leading a project in which the product requirements have not been fully met due to several uncertainties about the customer's acceptance. Now the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, gather a reduced number of approved requirements and add some extra features to fulfill the product specifications. Option B, gather enough requirements to produce the minimum viable product MVP with which to evaluate the customer's acceptance. Option C, stop all project activities until all requirements are set up front by the project sponsor and the key stakeholders. Or option D, ask team members to research and collect data about the best features offered by similar products in the market. Now we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is B, that the PM would suggest that they gather enough requirements to produce the MVP with which to evaluate the customer's acceptance. Now, I want to point this out with a humongous exclamation point that it's highly probable when you take the PMP exam, you are going to see MVP on there in some form of a question. Now, the MVP essentially is you making a decision to create a product with its bare minimum requirements. Why do you do that? Because essentially it gives you a low cost for development. It gives you the opportunity to go live with that product and then test the market to see whether it's viable, hence the minimum viable product. So pay attention to that because you are definitely more than likely going to get this form of question on the PMP exam. Now, I will say that when it comes to the MVP, in cases here that you're going to see here in the question, due to several uncertainties about customers' acceptance. Again, the MVP is a tremendous way not only for you to save, but to actually develop products in cases where clarity doesn't necessarily exist as to the viability of the product and that market acceptance. So keep that in mind. Hopefully you got this answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, welcome to question number 38. Question number 38 states, an organization is using a hybrid delivery approach for a complex project. Now, in the iteration review, a subject matter expert informed the team that a new legislation will be published in a few months. So the question is, what should the project manager do? Option A, ask the subject matter expert to provide details after the retrospective. Option B, discuss the change in the next sprint planning. Option C, discuss the change in the next release planning. Or option D, ask the subject matter expert to provide details in the next daily stand-up. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is B, that when faced with potential new legislation that may impact your project in the next couple months, the option is B, because you want to go ahead and understand what is the phase in which this conversation should take place. And that is you would discuss the change in the next sprint planning. Now, in this case, it does require you to understand the agile methodology and all the various phases. And let's go through option A here. You see the sprint retrospective. Now, the sprint retrospective is AKA lessons learned, and that is after you've completed the work. So it goes without saying that that is not the correct answer. If you look at option C, the next release planning, in that case, you are essentially planning the release of your project, AKA the work is already done. So that's a really good giveaway that that is not the correct answer. Now, when it comes to asking the product to provide details in the next daily stand-up, daily stand-ups are essentially when developers get on the call and they say, okay, this is what I'm going to be working on today. This is what I did yesterday. Do I have any hiccups that I've encountered that I need help being removed? This is not necessarily a platform in which you would have new legislation conversations. Where do you really discuss the details and functionality of your project? And that is through your sprint planning. That's where you're going to look at those functionalities, prioritize them based off complexity, based off resources, and essentially do what it is right there that it says, planning on your sprint. So that is the appropriate phase in which you would have this conversation. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, welcome to question number 39. Question number 39 states, a project team member has had an accident and will be in the hospital for at least 2 months. Now, the backlog items the team member was working on has been delayed since the team member was the only person who knew how to complete them. So the question is, what could the project manager have done to avoid this situation? Option A, identified this risk and defined a risk response plan. Option B, assigned the backlog items to at least 2 of the team members. Option C, developed a knowledge transfer plan. Or option D, reserve a contingency budget for external consultants. Now we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, and welcome back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is A, that the role of a PM is to initially identify any potential risk on the project, and in doing so, as they create their risk register, to come up with possible solutions to resolve those risks. If in this case you find that you have a developer who is unique in skills to that specific task, take into account the possibility that something may happen and that developer may be pulled off the project for whatever reason. And in this case, it's indicating what should the project manager have done to avoid the situation. Now, in this case, the PM should have identified this risk and then most importantly, defined a risk response plan. If this risk then becomes an actual reality, that PM would then refer back to their risk register plan and then implement the proposed plan to resolve the issue. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next question. Okay, and welcome back to question number 40. Question number 40 states, a development team member learned that one of the product features delivered in the last sprint would have been greater business value if a small enhancement was made to that feature. So the question is, what should the project manager do next? Option A, conduct another sprint planning meeting to add the necessary story. Option B, discuss this feature in the next sprint planning meeting. Option C, discuss this feature during the upcoming retrospective meeting. Or option D, advise the team member to better prepare for the sprint planning. So we're going to go ahead and pause the video momentarily, give you the opportunity to answer the question, then resume it with the actual results. Okay, so here we are back, and hopefully you got the answer correct. And the correct answer is B, that you would have that discussion in the sprint planning meeting, the next one that is. In this case, as we've often said, when it comes to the PMP questions, they're really testing whether you understand the agile methodology and the various phases in that process. It goes without saying that in the case of retrospective, as we've often said, retrospective is AKA lessons learned. That's when you've actually completed your work in the sprint and you are meeting to discuss what type of hiccups you've encountered and ways in which you can improve upon your processes to ensure they don't happen again. And in this case, in the sprint planning phase, that is where you're looking at the functionality. You're having those conversations that need to take place to prioritize your work. And it is a perfect phase in which you to discuss potential enhancements, whether big or small, to the existing functionality to improve that project. Hopefully you got that answer correct, and we look forward to seeing you into the next section.